Of the many eruptions of Mount Vesuvius, a major stratovolcano in southern Italy, the best known is its eruption in 79 AD, which was one of the deadliest in history. Mount Vesuvius violently spewed forth a cloud of superheated tephra and gases to a height of 33 kilometers, ejecting molten rock, pulverized pumice and hot ash at 1.5 million tons per second, ultimately releasing 100,000 times the thermal energy of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The event gives its name to the Vesuvian type of volcanic eruption, characterized by columns of hot gases and ash reaching the stratosphere, although the event also included pyroclastic flows associated with Pelean eruptions. The event destroyed several Roman towns and settlements in the area. Pompeii and Herculaneum, obliterated and buried underneath massive pyroclastic surges and ashfall deposits, are the most famous examples. Archaeological excavations have revealed much of the towns and the lives of the inhabitants, leading to the area becoming the Vesuvius National Park and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The total population of both cities was over 20,000. The remains of over 1,500 people have been found at Pompeii and Herculaneum. The total death toll from the eruption remains unknown. Apart from Pliny the Elder, the only casualties of the eruption to be known by name were the Herodian princess Drusilla and her son Agrippa, who was born in her marriage with the procurator Antonius Felix. It is also said that the poet Caesius Bassus died in the eruption. By 2003, approximately 1,044 casts made from impressions of bodies in the ash deposits had been recovered in and around Pompeii, with the scattered bones of another 100. The remains of about 332 bodies have been found at Herculaneum, 300 in arched vaults discovered in 1980. The total number of fatalities remains unknown. 38% of the 1,044 were found in the ashfall deposits, the majority inside buildings. This differs from modern experience over the last 400 years, when ashfalls have killed only around 4% of victims during explosive eruptions. This cohort was possibly sheltering in buildings when they were overcome. The remaining 62% of bodies found at Pompeii lay in the pyroclastic surge deposits, which probably killed them. It was initially believed that due to the state of the bodies found at Pompeii and the outline of clothes on the bodies, it was unlikely that high temperatures were a significant cause. Later studies indicated that during the fourth pyroclastic surge, the first surge to reach Pompeii, the temperature reached 300 degrees Celsius, which was enough to kill people in a fraction of a second. The contorted postures of bodies as if frozen in suspended action were not the effects of long agony, but of the cadaveric spasm, a consequence of heat shock on corpses. The heat was so intense that organs and blood were vaporized, and at least one victim's brain was vitrified by the temperature. Herculaneum, which was much closer to the crater, was saved from tephra falls by the wind direction but was buried under 23 meters of material deposited by pyroclastic surges. It is likely that most, or all, of the known victims in this town were killed by the surges, particularly given evidence of high temperatures found on the skeletons of the victims found in the arched vaults on the seashore and the existence of carbonized wood in many of the buildings. These people were concentrated in the vaults at a density as high as 3 per square meter and were all caught by the first surge, dying of thermal shock and partly carbonized by later and hotter surges. The vaults were most likely boathouses, as the crossbeams overhead were probably for the suspension of boats used for the earlier escape of some of the population. As only 85 meters of the coast have been excavated, more casualties may be waiting to be unearthed. Vesuvius and its destructive eruption are mentioned in 1st century Roman sources, but not the day of the eruption. For example, Josephus in his Antiquities of the Jews mentions that the eruption occurred in the days of Titus Caesar. Suetonius, a 2nd century historian, in his Life of Titus simply says that there were some dreadful disasters during his reign, such as the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in Campania. Writing well over a century after the actual event, Roman historian Cassius Dio, as translated in the Loeb Classical Library 1925 edition, wrote that, in Campania remarkable and frightful occurrences took place. For a great fire suddenly flared up at the very end of the summer. For more than 5 centuries, until approximately 2018, articles about the eruption of Vesuvius typically stated that the eruption began on August 24, 79 AD. This date came from a 1508 printed copy of a letter addressed by Pliny the Younger to the Roman historian Tacitus, originally written some 25 years after the event. Pliny was a witness to the eruption and provided the only known eyewitness account. Over 14 centuries of manuscript hand copying up to the 1508 printing of his letters. The date given in Pliny's original letter may have been corrupted. Manuscript experts believe that the date originally given by Pliny was one of August 24th, October 30th, November 1st, or November 23rd. This odd scattered set of dates is due to the Romans' convention for describing calendar dates. The large majority of extant medieval manuscript copies, there are no surviving Roman copies, indicate a date corresponding to August 24th. Since the discovery of the cities, this was accepted by most scholars and by nearly all books written about Pompeii and Herculaneum for the general public. Since at least the late 18th century, a minority among archaeologists and other scientists have suggested that the eruption began after August 24th, during the autumn, perhaps in October or November. In 1797, the researcher Carlo Rossini reported that excavations at Pompeii and Herculaneum had uncovered traces of fruits and braziers indicative of autumn, not the summer. More recently, in 1990 and 2001, archaeologists discovered more remnants of autumnal fruits, such as the pomegranate, the remains of victims of the eruption in heavy clothing, and large earthenware storage vessels laden with wine, at the time of their burial by Vesuvius. The wine-related discovery suggests that the eruption might have happened after the grape harvest. In 2007, a study of prevailing winds in Campania showed that the southeasterly debris pattern of the first-century eruption is quite consistent with an autumn event and inconsistent with an August date. During June, July, and August, the prevailing winds flow to the west, an arc between the southwest and northwest, virtually all the time. As Emperor Titus of the Flavian dynasty, reigning June 24, 79 AD to September 13, 81 AD, garnered victories on the battlefield, including his capture of the Temple of Jerusalem, and other honors. His administration issued coins enumerating his ever-growing accolades. Given the limited space on each coin, his achievements were stamped on the coins using an arcane encoding. Two of these coins, from early in Titus' reign, were found in a hoard recovered at Pompey's House of the Golden Bracelet. Although the coin's minting dates are somewhat in dispute, a numismatic expert at the British Museum, Richard Abbey, concluded that the latest coin in the hoard was minted on or after June 24, the first date of Titus' reign, and before September 1, 79 AD. Abbey states that it is remarkable that both coins will have taken just 2 months after minting to enter circulation and reach Pompeii before the disaster. In October 2018, Italian archaeologists uncovered a charcoal inscription reading, the 16th day before the calends of November, or October 17, that was probably made by a worker renovating a home, and which has subsequently been suggested as the most likely date for the eruption. While the graffito does not have a year listed, the nature of the writing suggests it was done just before the eruption of Vesuvius. It was found in an area of a house that was in the process of being renovated, likely just before the volcano erupted. While the charcoal writing itself is fragile and unlikely to have been preserved for years prior to the utter destruction of Pompeii, however, it is not known whether the October 17th graffito referred to that day, or a day in the past or the future. A collaborative study in 2022 has determined a date of October 24 to 25 for the eruption in 79 AD.